SpeekyGeeky's TMNT Character Spotlight. Hi, everybody. Welcome to SpeekyGeeky. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Geeky. Today, we are going to be discussing and giving a big ol' spotlight to NECA Archie Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures toy line. Over the years, we've tried to bring you episode after episode of all different lengths and realms of Turtles. Sometimes those episodes were Mirage, sometimes Fred Wolf, sometimes 2012, but historically, and you know we love diving deep into all the history here, those would focus on around 6 or so rad characters within each offering. Over the years, however, we've had a myriad of folks take time out of their busy days to ask us if we might be able to keep all the deep diving fun, but break it down a bit, because there's a big difference between finding 15 minutes at a time to learn about one exciting character versus over an hour to hear about 6 or more. We understand incredibly well that an hour or more is sometimes a long commitment and doable in this breakneck speed world we occupy. So we figured, heck, we think there's a way to meet folks where they're at. However they'd like to view our deep dives, by creating both a long-form episode and a series of shorter, broken-down character-specific episodes. So that way, we're putting the turtle power of choice in the viewer's hands on how they would like to interact on all our dorky character content goodness. Plus, this way, if you like a specific character and want others to know how freaking bodacious they are, boom! You can share a quick story with them versus throwing a full-on shelf of encyclopedia books their way. That said, we'd love for fans to weigh in on who you would like to see covered in our TMNT deep dives too. So be sure to let us know in the chat and in the comments below, because who knows? Some of your choices may end up making an appearance or two in one of our upcoming episodes as well. So welcome to our new-ish Spotlight series, where every episode we choose a different character from the various worlds of Turtles, and eventually other shows as well, to deconstruct their origins for your viewing entertainment. A reminder here too that each of these episodes can be found in their fuller form within other episodes within our channel as well, which we'll always be sure to conveniently drop links for within the video and the description. So if that is your preferred way of hearing more, by golly, we got you covered there too. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy hearing more about a specific character within the world of Turtles than you could ever want to know. CHERUBAE. Okay, let's be transparent here. It's incredibly difficult to bring this character up as an option without also wrapping in her alternate disguise persona, that of the Swamp Witch, Mary Bones. Mary, after all, is how we are first introduced to this character via her encounter with Jess Harley, the same thief-turned-hero we discussed earlier in the episode, who stole her turnstone and who she, in turn, transformed as punishment into the turtle ally Leatherhead. But wait, Geeky, there was a CHERUBAE that was introduced to us within the IDW series just recently in the Armageddon games as well, but we're pretty sure they never mentioned anything about her being a Swamp Witch. Well, that is very astute of you, imaginary observer, that we conveniently just brought in to have an outlet to briefly discuss the similarities and differences between Archie CHERUBAE and IDW's version. Thank you, as always, for chiming in at just the right moment. We always appreciate that. There are indeed many similarities between the classic CHERUBAE and her fairly recent current series counterpart. A couple of notable consistencies are her continued use of the powerful turnstone, her entrance as manifesting an outlet to pull the turtles into further extraterrestrial adventures, and her longtime friendship with the living dimensional taxicab with an overactive salivatory gland, the giant flying cowhead Cuddly the Cowlick. A good way to think about CHERUBAE is that she is to the Turtles' space adventures as Renette is to their time-traveling shenanigans and April is to their present-day ones. One notable difference between Archie and IDW's version is that some of the extended lore is adjusted within IDW to include more of a history between Null and Noite Dar, and that they seem to scrap the aspect of CHERUBAE choosing to change her form to disguise herself, considering that with Leatherhead having a very different origin in IDW, she no longer has the inherent story need to take on that transformation, nor does she share that same connection to IDW's Mr. Outram Eater Magoo, aka Leatherhead. For all intents and purposes, just as CHERUBAE's turnstone has great power that resided within it, so too did CHERUBAE herself, not just as a capable ally and former warlord, fighting side by side with the Turtles on many an occasion, but also as a useful conduit to bridge the Turtles' various worlds of characters together throughout the series when needed. Within the Archie series, it is through her introduction that sends the Turtles on their adventures through space, reuniting with Leatherhead at Stump Arena and thrusting them on their journey to encounter the rest of that iteration's Mutanimals, like Jaguar and Dreadmon, in their pursuit to rescue her after an attack from Krang out to steal the Turnstone for himself. Without CHERUBAE's involvement, Cuddly would never have met the Turtles, and the Mutanimals would never have formed, and conversely, might never have died. But that is another story altogether. Despite being such an integral part of the story, her own origins within the Archie series are fairly sparse. Other than that, she was similar to Krang in that she was a banished warlord. Yup, we have so many more questions about this character that we may never get closure on. One biggie being that she was lumped into the same category as Krang. So does that mean there is a shadow group of watchers or interplanetary council that is protecting the galaxy at large from these threats to pass down those assessments and banishment? Something similar to Star Trek's the Lycian Council? And then immediately following up that question with the obvious, what did she do that was deemed awful enough for banishment along the lines of Krang's conqueror tendencies? And will we ever get to learn that story? So again, the coveted Turnstone is touched on a bit within the Archie series during the final conflict arc, where we learn that this transformative device may be as old as the first humans on Earth. And when we couple this with its mechanics from the comic strips, we can further infer that it isn't actually magical in nature, but rather a highly advanced transmutation tool that CHERUBAE acquired through fate, and which is synced up to its user's thoughts and desires. It is also strongly implied within the comic strips that the device has a strong tie to the Utram Empire. Furthermore, it's alluded that the Turnstone might very well be directly connected in some way to the origins of mutagen, and thus also directly tied to the creation of the very Turtles themselves. This, shockingly, is the closest explanation we could find around this era surrounding the functionality of this powerful device. Well, it's true the comic strips often went their own off-kilter and irreverent path and were incredibly fun in their own right because it shared artists and writers of both series like Dan Berger and Jim Lawson and Stephen Murphy, aka Dean Clarrain. We're inclined to believe that there was likely an intentional or unintentional overlap from time to time that might have shed a little light on the behind-the-scenes thinking that filled in the gaps further on overarching plot points. Where Archie was more regimented toward 22-page episodic tales illustrating a specific story and keeping it on pace with intentional story beats that moved the larger journey forward, the comic strip had the luxury of a more open-ended pacing and gave the audience room to sit longer with certain story elements, which allowed for a little more philosophical introspection of scenarios rife with snarky humor. Does this line of thinking necessitate that this would have been the same trajectory of the Turnstone in the Archie series? For this, we may never know. But for now, it's the closest answer we have, and it's quite a mind-blowingly substantial piece to a puzzle that for over 35 years has remained fairly shrouded in mystery. So we're going to go ahead and say that until we have a more definitive answer from the original creators that ooze comes from the simple act of milking turtles, which in and of itself poses a modern version of which came first, the turtle milk or the egg, that this initial Turnstone building block is as good enough an answer as any. Okay, so what would we see coming with CHERUBAE? Should she descend from the cosmos onto our shelves for the very first time after all these years in plastic? Well, there is a big part of us that would love to see her come as a two-pack with her human disguised counterpart, Mary Bones. We could see CHERUBAE herself being a fairly likely candidate for the toy treatment due to her central role in the action of the ongoing series, but this pairing may in fact be the only way we'd be able to get the arguably lesser recognizable Mary Bones figure, along with a Turnstone atop her staff that we see more predominantly in the comic strip version, a separate orb that reenacts the cover from The Man Who Sold the World, with the Turtles, Splinter, April, and Dreadmon shown inside of it like a crystal ball, and it might be fun to see her come with a few smaller scale non-articulated Sons of Silence figures, a flight stand, and some glow effects or glow-in-the-dark features to capture her utilizing the Turnstone. SpeekyGeeky's TMNT polls. Since we're already talking about wholly new characters in plastic, we figured we would take a moment to ask you, the viewer, who you would like to see in one of our upcoming videos. We've been running polls on our YouTube community page as well as our SpeekyGeeky Instagram, Facebook, and Reddit pages as to which TMNT characters from various iterations we might want to see as toys. Here are some options from our latest polls, which you can weigh in on here in the comments, or head on over to any of our socials for the full list of option names to weigh in over there as well. And stay tuned because these winning options and more may very well appear in an upcoming TMNT deep dive or 2, or 10. There are also some incredibly talented TMNT customizers who are already creating some of those characters who appear on our polls. and it is a beautiful thing to see. Here are just a few of those absolutely creative folks that you are definitely going to want to keep up with, so make sure to follow them on their socials as well. Don't forget, we mentioned this last episode, and it's still not too late, but we'd love to feature your amazing turtle art in an upcoming episode. For submissions, head on over to our SpeekyGeeky official Instagram page, or tag us in the post with the hashtag SpeekyGeeky TMNT Fan Art. Again, this is open to all ages, and we just ask that submissions keep in mind that it should be all ages appropriate content. Where else can you find Mr. Geeky in the coming months? Even though we are hard at work putting together a handful of geeky new deep dives and interviews together for you this very minute, never you mind how we know what time of day you are watching this buster, just trust us. If it's in an hour of a day that ends in day, we're probably working hard on it. SpeekyGeeky's very own Mr. Geeky, hey, that's me, still managing to make the rounds all over the YouTubes to spread his dorkiness far and wide. And yep, that sure did sound way grosser than we intended, didn't it? First up, over on our all-ages friendly sister channel, Geeky Jr., for all those of you who appreciate the sound of a voice that can only be described as if nails on a chalkboard met Golem from Lord of the Rings, you're in luck, because Mr. Geeky tries his best on all sorts of nostalgic classic stories with narrations and voices for all your little geeklings and adults who are young at heart. We're talking characters from Sesame Street like Ernie, Bert, Grover, Big Bird, Cookie Monster, Wonder Pets, Daniel Tiger, Thomas the Train, Yo Gabba Gabba, Rubba Dubbers, and so much more. You can also find SpeekyGeeky lending his voice to some upcoming Mirage 2003, 2012, and Rise TMNT comic read-alongs on Teddy Gaming Review's Bodacious channel here, as the voice of Professor Kaori on the fan-made audio adaptation of the hit fantasy series The Fourth Wing over on the astoundingly talented Maddie Moore's channel here, and finally, we'll be geeking out and dishing on all the current TMNT news on Turtle Talk, as well as helping some rad figures from their plastic confinement on Grippin' and Rippin' over on Dave Wonder's channel here. Oh, one last thing. We've got a ton of neat and meaningful originals we've got cooking up for fans of the channel. One of which we thought you might appreciate getting a little sneak peek on. So, here is your glimpse of our SpeekyGeeky fan-made TMNT series that is coming soon to the channel in motion comic form and will be available in a very limited quantity print run exclusively as giveaways at conventions, through our marathon stream over on our good friend and host of Turtle Talk, Dave Wonder's channel, and in our online shop once we get that up and running. Well, there you have it. That concludes part 1 of our TMNT Spotlight series. But don't stray too far from the CerberoArt, because part 2 is right around the corner. We have no doubt you have some characters that make the tippy top of your list as well that you are stoked about seeing. So make sure to make your hopes known and join the discussion in the comments below. And if you haven't already, make sure to sub up, give the video a like, and share it with anyone you know who would appreciate these types of videos. Also, make sure to check out the description for some other links that lead to some expanded similar content we think you'll probably enjoy quite a bit. We realize you could have gone anywhere and you chose to nerd out with us, and we appreciate that. So, as always, I am Mr. Geeky, and until next week, TMNT Spotlight Speaky, keep it geeky, folks.